My name is David Hayes. I'm 34, and I was a senior financial manager at Sterling Financial Group, one of the largest consulting firms in New York. For 5 years, I built a solid relationship with Ashley Green, the woman I believed to be the love of my life. Our wedding was set for just 3 weeks away, and I could already see our future perfectly aligned, the apartment that would be our home, the plans we made together, the family we would form. I've always been the responsible brother in the Hayes family. My parents, Susan and Richard, depended on me to financially support my younger brother, Michael, 28. He was the charismatic one, the spontaneous one, the favorite son who never had to worry about consequences. I was the one who managed family finances, who solved problems, who kept everything running. My calm and helpful nature was seen as natural, not as a gift. If you like stories of cold revenge and gripping plot twists, subscribe to the channel now. There are 2 new, unreleased stories here every day, and each one is more impactful than the last. The world crumbled on a Sunday afternoon in October. Ashley arrived at our apartment, pale, holding a piece of paper in her trembling hands. "David, I need to tell you something," she said, and I knew immediately that my life was about to change forever. "I'm pregnant," she announced. For a brief moment I felt joy. Then she continued, and the words came out like stabs. "It's Michael's." The silence that followed was deafening. My mind, trained to process complex data and maintain composure under financial pressure, began to process the magnitude of the catastrophe. My own brother, the best man at our wedding, had betrayed my trust in the deepest way possible. "How could this happen?" I asked, my voice more controlled than I expected. Ashley cried, babbling about a terrible mistake and a moment of weakness. The excuses sounded empty, rehearsed. In retrospect, the signs were all there. The whispered conversations between them, the exchanged glances, the time they spent together when I was working. My intuition, the same one that helped me identify anomalies in financial reports, had warned me, but I had trusted too much. When I confronted Michael by phone, he mumbled about not knowing how it happened, as if the betrayal were an unavoidable accident. My parents, when they found out, immediately went into damage control mode. "Family is family," my mother said. "Mistakes happen," my father added. "You need to forgive for everyone's sake." At that moment, one thing became crystal clear. They expected me, the responsible brother, to absorb the blow silently. That I would forgive, forget, and move on, protecting the family's reputation and the favorite son from the consequences of his actions. But they completely underestimated who I truly was. The following Monday, while my family expected tears and pleas for reconciliation, I was in my office at Sterling Financial Group, doing what I always did best, strategizing. The difference was that now I was planning my way out of this situation in a way they would never imagine. My first step was to protect my assets. Fortunately, I had always kept my finances strictly separate from Ashley's, a precaution I took early in the relationship, not out of distrust, but out of professionalism. I transferred all my assets to a personal trust, changed my will, removing Ashley and Michael from any benefit, and canceled all joint accounts I had opened with her. I contacted James Morrison, a lawyer specializing in family law who had no connection to my family's social circle. "I want you to document everything," I told him. "Every conversation, every attempt at pressure, every plea for forgiveness. I'll need concrete proof." Over the next few weeks, my family intensified their manipulation campaign. My mother called me daily, always with the same speech. "David, you can't destroy the family because of this. Think about the child who's coming. Michael made a mistake, but you are brothers." "Mom," I replied coldly, "the family has already been destroyed. Not by me." My father tried a more direct approach. "Son, you've always been the sensible one. Don't let pride speak louder than family love. People will talk if you cancel the wedding now." "Let them talk," I replied. "The truth always comes out." Michael, for his part, alternated between guilt and indignation. "David, I know I messed everything up, but you've always been my hero. You can't abandon me now. Ashley is desperate, and so am I." Every conversation was recorded, every text message archived. My lawyer was building a complete dossier of family pressure and attempts at emotional manipulation. Meanwhile, I maintained my normal routine at work, appearing absolutely calm. It was during this time that I met Sarah Chen, an investment consultant who had been hired for a project at our company. She was 31, a Harvard Business School graduate, and possessed a sharp intellect that impressed me from our first meeting. Unlike Ashley, Sarah perfectly understood the complexity of my work and respected my professional dedication. "You look like you're carrying the weight of the world," she commented during a work lunch. "Let's just say I'm going through a personal reorganization," I replied. Our encounters started as discussions about financial strategies, but gradually evolved into deeper conversations. Sarah had a unique perspective on relationships and family. She had grown up in a Chinese immigrant family, where responsibility and loyalty were fundamental values, but never at the expense of personal dignity. "In my culture," she explained to me during a dinner, "honor isn't just about forgiving. Sometimes it's about knowing when to walk away from toxic situations, even when they involve family." Her words resonated deeply with me. For the first time in weeks, I felt that someone understood my position without judging me. Meanwhile, Ashley and Michael's situation deteriorated rapidly. Without my financial support, Michael was facing serious difficulties maintaining his lifestyle. He had recently lost his job, fired for excessive absences and poor performance, and depended more and more on our parents, who in turn began to feel the burden of supporting 2 adults and a child on the way. My mother tried a new strategy. "David, your parents are running out of money to help Michael. You can't just abandon your family when they need you most." "Mom," I replied, "you never really needed me. You always wanted me to be the problem solver, but you never respected me for it. Now you'll learn to solve your own problems." Ashley sought me out personally at the office, in a desperate attempt at reconciliation. She was visibly pregnant, and her appearance denoted the stress she was facing. "David, please, can we talk? I made the biggest mistake of my life, but I can't raise this child alone." "Ashley," I said calmly, "you're not alone. You have Michael, who is the child's father, and you have my family, who so desperately want me to forgive. They can support you." "But I love you," she insisted, tears streaming down her face. "It was just a mistake, a moment of weakness. We can get through this. Go to couples therapy, start over." I looked her in the eye and said, "Love is not what you did to me. Love is trust, loyalty, respect. You chose my brother. Now live with the consequences of that choice." 3 months after the revelation, I had completely reorganized my life. I requested a transfer to the Sterling Financial Group office in Boston, which was immediately granted along with a promotion to Director of Financial Operations. My salary increased by 40%, and I gained full autonomy over a team of 15 people. The move was strategic. Boston offered me the necessary distance from family toxicity, but kept me within the same corporate network, preserving my professional trajectory. Furthermore, Sarah had accepted a position at a consulting firm in Boston, and our relationship was developing naturally. My family was in shock at the news of the transfer. "You can't just run away from problems," my mother said during our last conversation before the move. "I'm not running away," I replied. "I'm choosing my future. There's a fundamental difference between those two things." My father tried one last gambit. "If you leave like this, you'll never be welcome in this house again." "Perfect," I replied. "That makes things much simpler for all of us." On moving day, as I supervised the movers taking my belongings, I received a series of desperate messages from Michael. "Brother, I know you hate me now, but I hope one day you can forgive me. I messed everything up, and I don't know how to fix it." I didn't reply. Some wounds don't need forgiveness to heal, just distance and justice. And I was about to discover that justice sometimes comes more naturally and devastatingly than any planned revenge. In Boston, my new life flourished in ways I hadn't imagined possible. The Sterling Financial Group office was more modern and dynamic than the one in New York, and my team responded exceptionally well to my leadership. Within 6 months, we managed to increase the division's profitability by 28%, an achievement that caught the attention of national management. Sarah and I moved into an apartment in Back Bay with views of the Charles River. Our relationship deepened naturally, based on mutual respect and shared values. She helped me understand that rebuilding a life doesn't mean forgetting the past, but rather consciously choosing not to let it define your future. "You don't talk much about your family," she observed one night as we dined at home. "Because they're part of a chapter I chose to close," I replied. "I'm writing a new one now." Meanwhile, in New York, the chaos I had predicted began to manifest. Through mutual contacts and social media, which I monitored discreetly, I learned that my old family situation was rapidly deteriorating. Michael couldn't hold down a job. Without my financial and emotional support, he revealed his true nature: irresponsible, immature, and completely dependent on others. Ashley, 8 months pregnant, was living with my parents because Michael couldn't afford his own apartment. My mother called me in despair. "David, please, you need to come back. The situation here is unsustainable. Michael is depressed, Ashley is stressed, and your father and I can't handle all this anymore." "Mom," I replied calmly, "you created this situation when you chose to protect Michael instead of supporting the victim of betrayal. The consequences are natural." "But the child is innocent," she insisted. "Yes, she is. And that's precisely why she deserves to grow up away from the toxicity you've normalized for years." The final blow for them came when they discovered that Michael had incurred significant debt on credit cards and personal loans, using the family name as a reference. He had lied about having a stable job and accumulated over $50,000 in debt he couldn't repay. My father called me for the first time in months. "David, we need your help. Michael has put us in a very difficult financial situation. Creditors are calling constantly." "Dad," I said coldly, "for years you treated me like a family bank, but never like a son. Now that you truly need financial help, you find that you've burned the bridge with the only person who could offer it. Are you going to let your family go bankrupt out of pride?" he asked, his voice trembling with anger and despair. "It's not pride, Dad. It's consequence. You chose to shield Michael from all his irresponsibilities for decades. Now he's your problem, not mine." The situation worsened when Ashley went into premature labor due to stress. The baby was born healthy, but the medical bills piled up because Michael didn't have adequate health insurance. He had lost coverage when he was fired from his last job and hadn't made alternative arrangements. Sarah was with me when I received the news of the child's birth through a distant cousin. "How do you feel knowing you have a nephew?" she asked gently. "I feel sorry for the child," I replied honestly. "She will grow up surrounded by lies, manipulation, and irresponsibility. But I can't save everyone, especially when they don't want to be saved." Meanwhile, my career continued its ascent. I was promoted to regional vice president and received an offer to lead Sterling Financial Group's expansion into international markets. My success became well known in the industry, and several specialized publications interviewed me about financial management strategies. Ironically, it was through one of these interviews that Michael learned of my success. He sent me a desperate message on LinkedIn. "David, I saw your interview in the Financial Times. I'm so proud of you, brother. I know I made terrible mistakes, but can we talk? I really need your guidance." I didn't reply. Some bridges once burned cannot be rebuilt. The last straw came when I learned that my parents were considering selling the family home to pay off Michael's debts. The house where we grew up, which my father had bought in the 80s and was now worth over $400,000, would be sacrificed to cover the favorite son's irresponsibility. My Aunt Patricia, my mother's sister, called me indignant. "David, you need to know what's happening. Your parents are destroying the family's assets because of Michael. It's unfair that you, who have always been responsible, are being punished for refusing to tolerate this absurd situation." "Aunt Pat," I replied, "thank you for informing me, but that's no longer my battle. They made their choices, and I made mine." A year after my move to Boston, Sarah and I got married in an intimate ceremony in Cape Cod, with only our closest friends and her family present. It was a perfect day, marked by genuine joy and true love, everything my first marriage should have been, but never would be. No member of my family was invited. They found out about the wedding through photos some friends posted on social media. My mother tried to call me the next day, but I didn't answer. That phase of my life was definitively over. The most powerful revenge, I discovered, isn't the one you actively plan. It's the one that happens naturally when you remove yourself from toxic situations and allow people to face the consequences of their own choices, while you build something better and more authentic. 3 years have passed since I left New York. Sarah and I had our daughter Emma, a 2-year-old with her mother's bright eyes, and, according to Sarah, my quiet determination. Our life in Boston was everything I had always wanted: stable, honest, and built on solid foundations. My career reached heights I never imagined. I was promoted to executive director of Sterling Financial Group for the entire East Coast, overseeing operations in 6 states. My salary had tripled since my New York days, and I was being considered for the company's presidency in the next 5 years. It was through a former colleague that I learned of the final developments in the family saga. Marcus Thompson, who still worked at the New York office, called me with news he thought I should know. "David, I know you cut contact with your family, but I thought you should know. Your parents lost the house. It was foreclosed by the bank last week." I felt a pang of sadness, not for them, but for the house where I grew up. "What about Michael?" I asked, more out of morbid curiosity than genuine concern. "Man, it's a tragedy. He's living in a 1-bedroom apartment in Queens with Ashley and the kid. She works as a receptionist at a dental office, and he does food delivery for an app. I heard they can barely make rent." The irony was devastating. The favorite son, who always had everything handed to him, was now struggling to survive with jobs that demanded exactly what he never developed: responsibility and consistency. "And your parents?" I asked. "They're living in a small apartment in New Jersey. Your dad looks like he's aged 10 years. Your mom, well, she asks about you whenever she meets someone who knows you." I hung up the phone and remained silent for a few minutes. Sarah, who was feeding Emma, noticed my expression. "Bad news from the old life?" she asked gently. "No," I replied after thinking. "Natural consequences. There's a difference." 2 months later, I received a handwritten letter from my mother. She had gotten my address through some contact at Sterling Financial Group. The letter was long, full of regret and pleas for reconciliation. "David," she wrote, "I know we made terrible mistakes. I know we protected Michael when we should have supported you. We lost everything: the house, our stability, our family. But most of all, we lost you, and that hurts more than any material thing. You were always our strongest, most capable, most honest son. We couldn't see it at the time because we simply expected you to always be there. Forgive us for taking you for granted." The letter continued for pages, detailing their financial difficulties, my father's health problems, Michael's depression, Ashley's struggles as a de facto single mother. It was a complete catalog of the collapse that followed my absence. I showed the letter to Sarah. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "Nothing," I replied. "Some lessons are only learned when one fully experiences the consequences of their own choices." "Don't you feel like helping?" she insisted. "I feel sorry for them," I admitted. "But pity is not the same as responsibility. They had decades to treat Michael as an adult and treat me as a son, not as a problem solver. They chose to do the opposite." The following month, I learned that Michael had been arrested for DUI, his 3rd offense. He lost his driver's license and, consequently, his delivery job. Ashley had to take on a 2nd job to support the family alone. My Aunt Patricia called me again. "David, I know you have your reasons, but Michael is devastated. He says he lost the only brother he truly admired." "Aunt Pat," I replied calmly, "he didn't lose a brother. He betrayed a brother. There's a fundamental difference." "But the child," she tried to argue. "The child has 2 parents. If they can't adequately care for her, there are social services and other relatives who can help. I am not responsible for fixing the consequences of other people's betrayal." The final closure came 4 years after my move to Boston. Sarah was pregnant with our 2nd child, and I had just signed the contract to assume the presidency of Sterling Financial Group the following year. I was in my office when I received a call from an unknown New York number. It was Michael. His voice was unrecognizable, broken by age and regret. "David, I know I don't even deserve for you to answer, but our father is in the hospital. He had a heart attack. Doctors say it's serious." I felt a pang of real pain. Despite everything, my father had been a good man for most of my life. His mistakes didn't completely erase the good times. "Where?" I asked. "Mount Sinai." "David, he only talks about you. He said his biggest regret in life was losing the son he was most proud of." I was silent for long seconds. Then I said, "Michael, I will visit our father, but I want to make it clear. I'm going there for him, not for you or for any family reconciliation. Some bridges cannot be rebuilt." "I understand," he replied, his voice full of resignation. "Thank you, David. Thank you for being better than all of us." I visited my father in the hospital. We talked for 2 hours, and he genuinely asked for my forgiveness. Not for others, but for himself. He said it took him years to understand that confusing favoritism with love had destroyed his family. He died 3 days later, in peace, knowing he had reconciled with the son who truly mattered. I did not go to the funeral. I sent flowers and a respectful note, but my presence there would have been hypocritical. My life was in Boston, with my true family. Today, 7 years later, I am president of Sterling Financial Group. I have 2 beautiful children with Sarah, and I have built a life based on solid values. Sometimes I think about Michael, Ashley, and my mother, but without anger or resentment. They were involuntary teachers who taught me the most valuable lesson of my life. Some people only respect you when they can no longer use you. The true revenge, I discovered, is not the one you actively plan. It is the one that happens naturally when you remove yourself from toxic situations and allow people to face the consequences of their own choices while you build something better and more authentic. If you liked this story, like, share, and leave your comment telling me what you thought. And if you're not subscribed to the channel yet, please subscribe and hit the bell icon to receive notifications of new stories like this. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.